Come unwrap some holiday magic this season in Denver, where the lights are brighter and the shopping is grander, where the season feels a whole lot more wonderful. Discover great hotels and more things to do at milehighholidays.com.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
Doing well. Doing well. Thanks so much for having me today, Rob. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. It's been fantastic day to day here. It's kind of dreary. I don't know if it's where you're at.
Yeah, it's a little overcast and gloomy. Visibility's slightly diminished than what it normally is. Typically, we can see all the way out past Lady Liberty from my office, but it's a little, less than today.
Yeah, it's all over the East, and I'm here in Atlanta, and you got the beautiful New York skyline behind you there.
There it is in all its glory.
Yeah. So you are in real estate. Now, who are you working with these days in your real estate venture?
I work with Cooper and Cooper, a firm founded coming up on 18 years this February by two former investment banker brothers, Jordan and Jeremy Cooper, one formerly at Goldman, the other at BOA, both Ivy League guys by way of Harvard and Columbia Business. Small team here under Beam. We've probably got about 60 total persons, so we're definitely boutique. We say small but mighty. But I really connected with them per their core values of honesty, integrity, and exceptional service, because they resonate with a few core values of my previous life as a Marine in the form of honor, courage, and commitment. A few other reasons on top of that, but it was an easy pick for me for sure.
Wow, it's really amazing. I'm reading your bio. I mean, like the Renaissance man type of description. Really, it doesn't even scratch the surface. I mean, what a great amount of experience, and you bring a lot of that to the table. Being in real estate, I think that really helps.
I try. It is a culmination, I would say, of experiences and stories, previous employments for sure, that I'm able to draw from and apply towards what I do now, whether it's getting to learn a neighborhood logistically, talking to clients, understanding, empathizing with them, because I've lived in many places myself. Can tell you a few jokes from city to city. I can tell you a little bit about the 404, Buckhead, Cumming, South Forsyth High School, and bits of Marietta, Alpharetta, Worth County, Georgia, just by way of having been down there. And it really plays a lot of benefit into what I do now. Again, a lot of it through empathy, but really just listening to people, being able to provide service to them in what for most is the biggest decision of their lives financially, at least to this point, in purchasing a home. And it means a lot to me to be able to be there, reliable, supportive, and authentic for someone that is looking to create memories, smiles, have security, comforts, and whatnot.
How's the market doing in New York these days through the pandemic, and now as we're hopefully emerging from this?
Better than ever. Anyone can say what they like as far as opinions, right? But two bits of data that I would say are my trump cards, or my cards to disavow any rumors. In the pandemic year of 2020, my firm saw its highest grossing sales figures ever. And that was then during our 16 years of existence. So that was my first indicator of like, okay, say what you want. New York is dead. It's not coming back. Market is crazy. Da, da, da. Highest figures in 17 years. Got it. This year, all of the records we broke last year, month by month, volume, overall transactions, et cetera, have all been broken again. So not only was pandemic year indicative of New York's health at the time, and at least turnover taking place at the time, we've since surpassed to show New York's return to not only what we would say is normal, but significant longevity right there. And those are in back-to-back years. So clearly we are on the trend line of, again, not normalcy, but to a better place, right? The swell of inventory that took place from the lack of demand in 2020 was big, and a lot of people we're fearful of that only because of the market size and the sheer numbers that are going around when you're talking about multiple decimal places, right? And volume. Sure, that looks crazy. But if you view it with objective economics eyes, it all made sense. There was high
Yeah.
demand, or rather, there was high inventory, there was low demand. So, what happens in those cases? Prices fall. Sure. Interest rates weren't the greatest, but they certainly caught up once that elasticity of pricing kind of responded, commanding those interest rates to change as well as with the Fed. Now that inventory has reduced a little bit, the demand has surged. So in the rentals market, especially, you're seeing crazy high rents in comparison to what was in the previous year. So I say it's pretty ceteris paribus to use economics, but again, people got a bit scared, I think, just because of the size of the market and the dauntingness of those numbers. But otherwise, things are open. People are happy. People are back. There are more people that have returned since that originally left. I read in Business Insider about a month ago. So New York City is definitely back.
Yeah, I noticed that with Broadway coming back, all the shows are coming back, and you're seeing that surge. People just want to have that collaboration and human touch again. You're starting to see it, even though we're going to have these variants come out. I think people are resilient that way. I think it's just going to be a roller coaster. I don't think we'll get out of COVID so quickly, as it's not going to be like eradicated. But then there's inflation too. I'm sure that puts some pressure on things and inventory. But I still think people are in a high demand. It's happening here, as you know, in the Atlanta metro area, where inventory has been really low. People are just like knocking on the door trying to get me to sell my house.
Yeah, New York is so unique for many reasons, but particularly in real estate, only because for the most or the rest of the country, you and I, especially, I'm originally from New Orleans, you and I can talk real estate very similarly based on Atlanta and New Orleans. Price per square foot, size, lot values, a lot of it is pretty comparable. New York is so much different simply because you're pretty much adding a zero to the price per square foot right off the bat, right? So you're adding a decimal place, and that really makes it hard to conceptualize when you're from outside the space, because you walk into a place that I'm showing in New Orleans, I can walk into a place that you're showing in Atlanta, and right away I can go, hey, what's the price per square foot here? And like, I've immediately got an understanding of what we're looking at, right? And Rob can walk into my place and say the same thing, and you've immediately got an understanding. Whereas here in Manhattan, when I say, hey, price per square foot, we're looking at just about under 2,000 square foot, you're gonna be like, what? It's almost inconceivable, right? So trying to get a wrap around that for a lot of people is just a hard thing to do. But up here, it's normal. And there are a lot of people up here to where that's normally the thing, right? I don't know what it's like to practice or to work in this industry outside of this space, where demand is so beyond high and continuous, regardless of inventory, regardless of inflation, regardless of interest rates. People just keep coming here. And it's a blessing and a curse. You're always going to be up to your eyeballs in people and calls and emails, but at the same time, thank God for it, because that's what keeps us going. That's what keeps this market driving. And yeah, it promotes that resilience that you touched on, right? Like, I think that that omnipresent competitiveness is just part about New York City. It's part of being a New Yorker. And it's definitely something that I love in the industries, because it's so hyper competitive that you've got to be on your toes. You've got to be on your A game, because if you're not, you're going to get snaked by a competitor
Right
outside your space. You're going to get snaked by clients because they're going to prefer someone that is more pouncy, more punctual, more organized, just able to provide better service. And that drive and demand of quality is something that I really thrive on too.
Yeah, I see that competitiveness on $1 Million Listing and in the New York and the LA versions. And wow, how cutthroat. Do you sell those kind of spaces like what they're showing? Is it mainly Manhattan? Do you have all the boroughs? How far do you go out?
I work predominantly in Manhattan, but I have done things in Brooklyn, Queens, and Harlem so far. Not to the size of what's being shown on East and West Coast $1 Million Listing yet, but obviously, all in due time. I mean, I'm coming up on my 4th year in the business, and I had about a year of hiatus within that anyway. So like, I still feel very confident in my ability. I'm always learning. Number one, every day is a school day. And that's a big part of the job. It's building familiarity with not just the business, but, notoriety within it and outside of it too, between clients, either through, the office or through personal referrals. Like, people need to know you're substantive. People should know of you somewhat, because again, you're talking about large transactions, most of which are the largest for, financial decision in many people's lives. You're not just going to hand that over to some young buck that might have a silver tongue and a nice face, even though people do it all the time. Not with me, but that I see. But I'd rather be more genuine about it and have earned it, and know that I can confidently drive this car, this Ferrari, because I've been schooled at Le Mans. I've been schooled at the Nürburgring. I grew up driving, Porsches or Ferraris, and I'm not just getting behind the wheel of one because I have the money to buy it, but like, I love this machine, and I can show you how to drive it, kind of, example. And that's what I'm building and working towards. And more, I'm slowly doing that, even though it's kind of coming quicker, because there's a lot of baptism by fire, which I love. Getting uncomfortable and being uncomfortable, getting uncomfortable. It's Marine Corps 101, but it's also one of our core values here too, and big principles that we hold dear. And it's why there's a 90% attrition rate in this business, in this city, within the first year by many people, because they just can't hack it. So in time, those numbers will come, and kind of the field of dreams, if you build it, they will come scenario of like,
Come unwrap some holiday magic this season in Denver, where the lights are brighter and the shopping is grander. The shows are more spectacular, the trees taller, the festivities merrier. So come for your holiday traditions or make some new ones with your friends and family in the Mile High City, where the season feels a whole lot more wonderful. Discover great hotels and more things to do at milehighholidays.com.
That's why I pound and impress upon people my honesty and genuineness, because eventually those out there that have facades or that have some, less than ethical tactics, slander and whatnot are going to be found out about. And when those, chickens come home to roost, it's not good for anybody.
Yeah, the truth sets you free. There's no question about it. And if you're not being on the up and up, it's going to catch up with you. And I'm sure you see that in the real estate industry as well. It's like we see certain shady characters in a lot of businesses, but you could see it a little bit more there too. So how did you get into this business? What was everything leading up to that? And what made you decide to do this?
So I actually went to school here in New York at the Fashion Institute of Technology in Chelsea. And logical next step of that professionally for me was, okay, take the degree that I'd earned there, which was in international trade and marketing for the fashion industry. So the business school at FIT, not the design school. Everybody thinks, FIT, oh, you must be in fashion design or design merchandising or some kind of mass comm. And it's like, no, I did more of the business side, which kind of means boring when you get to a fashion house or a brand, and which I ended up being a compliance officer with Ralph Lauren, working with their global human rights department, which I loved the idea of protecting our garment workers and apparel workers around the world, making sure they were getting their proper wages, hours, working conditions, occupational health and safety, everything that taken care of and assured was being had. But I wasn't connecting with it. I got there and immediately realized, oh boy, this is not what I'm meant to be doing under these conditions, meaning in office at a terminal, beautiful office, great team, great people. I love all them to death. I have nothing but great things to say about the brand. I'm still a fan and in brand as we speak. But it just wasn't giving to me something that I took home with a high heart. And so one day I was sitting up in the ivory tower on Madison Avenue, looking down, and it was winter, it was snowing. I remember looking down and seeing all the people scurrying on the street and thinking like, I need to be down there. I need to be doing something which enables me to be running around. I was like, because sitting up here is not utilizing an asset that I have. And that's my energy, my assertiveness, my kind of just want to be on the move. Like in the Marine Corps, I served in the infantry, and a lot of that is combative training, right? So like close quarters battle, close quarters combat, kicking indoors, house to house fighting and urban combat. And that was my kind of click of, hey, I can find my way of proverbial door kicking and going house to house in this city. Where do I do that? And I found myself taking night classes, leaving work early from Ralph Lauren, sneaking out to go to the New York Real Estate Institute to do just that and obtain my real estate license. And the first day in there, I saw people from all walks of life, some which looked like they hadn't gotten much sleep, others which looked like they'd been sleeping for weeks, dressed differently at different ages, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, am I in the right place? I'd come from the office and I'm top to bottom and Ralph, and I didn't know what, if I was wrong or right. And then the first person on the first day that happened to be the guest speaker was Jordan Cooper. And everything he said to me hit me like a lightning bolt of much of what I've already said today with you, as far as in their firm's history, foundings and origin, the core values, the attrition rate of persons in the industry. And if basically him saying, if you think you have what it takes kind of tone. And I was, sitting there laughing. I was like, I heard this before. I remember these Marine Corps commercials about fighting, dragons and chess pieces moving on a board, and buying into all that when I was a kid. And it almost felt like an infomercial, candy camera moment. I was like, is he talking to me? Because it feels like he's talking to me. And I had to check myself and say, don't buy into this so hard, right? Because you're looking for it, which I was. But I drank it pretty heavy, pretty thick, and I was hooked from that on. And met with him during the intermission of our class that day, spoke very lengthily, and then again at the end of it, and that was it.
Challenge accepted. That's true. But, it's that military training. You have to say that really prepares you mentally to say, I'm going to just now take on this. And so your military experience is impressive. You did 4 years Marine Corps, which is just, out of all those branches of the military, that's incredibly challenging. And you were in Operation Enduring Freedom. What was that all like?
Yeah, so the Marines was a good time. 2003 to 2007, it was a great time to be a Marine. We were pretty popular, all over the place. And still am in close contact with my friends to this day. I mean, I was on the phone with one earlier before this call. But yeah, had some overseas deployment by way of Okinawa and throughout the Philippines in support of Enduring Freedom, looking for some then Abu Sayyaf terrorist cells that we never actually found, but nonetheless, at least getting out there and trying to do some good for the cause. But great memories, good people, and some of the best 4 years I've ever had in my life, and look and draw from to this day. Look back on and draw from to this day for sure. And so much is relatable from that world to the one I'm in now. And my buddies and mine and I from grad school, we laugh about how so much correlates to what we do, as far as when you plan a mission or an operation militarily, particularly in the Marine Corps, you run by this system, because you and I have to have a seamlessness of understanding amongst each other. If I'm going to pass this to you or you pass it to me, I have to be able to, same as nurses, doctors would use in the medical report of, harmonization. And we apply that same thing in grad school for various assignments, and I do it with work, getting the lay of the land, understanding clients, being able to profile, surveil, acquisition, the logistics going with planning the route, the reconnaissance of buildings and neighborhoods, and then familiarity with persons, memorizing of names, my communication, administrative parts that go into all that. That's a package, which we would call an order, and then execute. And then do everything after action to kind of retain the information, summarizing of everything. And it's pretty relatable. Nobody's shooting at you though, so that helps. The ease of
no shooting.
Yeah, not getting shot at. It's great.
You lay down your arms, but there's so many similarities between that. What made you go into the military? Were you always this disciplined, or did you get the discipline strictly from the Marines?
Definitely not always this discipline in certain things. Athletically, yes, I've been a lifelong athlete, and in my respective sports, I was always really into it. Anything that I had passion for, I guess, I was always 100%. And at the time, I really wasn't feeling school. college, undergraduate. You know, like I graduated high school in 2002. Right, I was a senior during 9/11, and that really stuck with me. Right, so I was part of the 9/11 era of enlistees, and after that, you know, that pretty much I never got over that, and trying to go into school and put that behind me and ignore it. I didn't understand it at the time, but I was being called more to that place in my mind than I was interested in school. I just thought I was not interested, or I didn't belong there. But it was really that, hey, you know, there's a curiosity here that's being inspired by something that happened, and you need to follow up on this. And that's what I felt compelled to do. And yeah, it was a great life changing decisions. One of those, you know, on the single fist of pivotal moments that you can say change your life. And that was for sure one of them for me.
Well, there's nothing more selfless than that, though. And I've heard about people being very inspired after 9/11 and saying, no, I'm taking this path now because this is for the greater good. And that's just an incredible thing to have. And you're part of history. This is really just very solid part of it that you were part of. I think it's fantastic. So what made you get a master's in business? How did that come about?
I was always interested in higher education. My brother's an attorney who I admire and respect so much, because not only is he an attorney, he's an awesome one. Fights the immigration fight on behalf of the persons looking to obtain, not on the government side. So he's a real freedom fighter. He won't say it like that. He wouldn't describe it like that. He would say it's much less glorious and whatnot. But I'd say it's extremely admirable.
Oh yeah.
Higher education was always something that was important to me. It was important to my mother, for my brother and I to be educated, and something that had kind of slipped through my fingers before in the past. I'd applied and been waitlisted at Stern. I'd inquired a little bit softly at Cornell, and school was never my thing at the beginning, prior military, nor even afterwards for a while. And then I did so well at FIT, and was like, wow, if I actually apply myself, it's amazing what can happen. And, you know, my mother said the same thing, and a few of my friends too. Thanks, guys. And then when this Master of Business for Veterans at USC came to my attention, I was like, wow, this is the perfect program for me. And as the, you know, saying goes, it's not about the right school or the best school, but the best school or the best program for you. And this was for sure the best one for me. It's the only of its kind to which all students, all 100 of us, were either prior military or currently still serving. So all the jokes hit in class. Nothing went over anybody's head. You weren't the weirdo veteran, you know, liability in a classroom. And the curriculum was really structured toward leveraging our experiences, particularly that in leadership and high stress situations, melded with traditional business school acumen and curriculum. So it's like I said, first of its kind at the University of Southern California, Marshall. And
order your holiday meal packs today at Hy-Vee and leave the cooking to us. Order traditional meals, small crowd meals, or a la carte meals. You can even customize your holiday meal by choosing from a variety of meats, sides, pies, and more. There's something for everyone with the Hy-Vee holiday meal packs. Order in-store or online at hi-v.com. Happy holidays from Hy-Vee.
The holidays start here at Baker's with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. You could do a classic herb-roasted turkey or spice it up and make turkey tacos. Serve up a go-to shrimp cocktail or use Simple Truth wild-caught shrimp for your first Cajun risotto. Make creamy mac and cheese or a spinach artichoke fondue from our selection of Murray's cheese. No matter how you shop, Baker's has all the freshest ingredients to embrace all your holiday traditions. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
Yeah, it was really sweet, and I still, you know, I'm communicative with these guys to this day. We're going to actually be in LA in a few weeks for a good holiday dinner with my tight knit group of boys.
Yeah, that's great. And you forge relationships from all these phases of your life, probably military, business school, fashion institute, and yeah, it's great to have friendships that just last for years for lifetime, really, probably in a lot of cases. So how did you get into acting? How did that come about?
I was working out, shooting a video at a gym a few years ago here in New York. And a friend of mine that I was there with was basically like, hey, man, you should think about trying to be a fitness model. Or did you ever want to be a fitness model? I was like, no, I don't know anyone. I never really thought about it. Sure, I'd give it a try, but I don't have a contact or connection. He's like, well, I have an agent. I can put you in touch. I was like, all right, cool, let's do it. I was like, all right, let me send a picture, take a picture of you on the phone and send it to him. I was like, okay. Did that. And like 2 seconds later, the guy responded, hey, who is this guy? Da, 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 da. Bring him in here. Or he's my friend. We're doing a workout video. Bring him over to the office when you guys finish the video. And he tells me this. I'm like, today? Like right now? And my friend's like, yeah, today, now. I'm like, cool. Gotta love New York, you know? So we went over to the office. We met, casual conversation. I was there the next day to sign a contract and work with them for 3 years. My first agency was great. Commercial work, print work, mostly fitness based stuff, and a few like workout video series, video series, some of which are still streaming in various hotels and other platforms around the world, which is always funny to be and find at a random place. Like my mother and I were at a hotel here in New York a few years ago, and I was flipping channels between like before dinner or something, and one of my program's videos was on TV, and I'm like screaming through the window, like, Mom, put it on channel, 45.3 or something. And she turns it on, like starts screaming, and I'm just dying laughing. I was like, oh my God, this is so funny. But from there is what got me into acting. One day, that same agent called me up. He's like, hey, you think you could go to a table reading for a small off-Broadway production? Is very minimally detailed. And I was like, sure. He's like, okay, don't let me down. Okay. At the time, I didn't even know what a table reading was. Yeah. I assumed it was a reading of maybe a script sat at a table by possibly potential cast members, which is basically what a table reading is, right?
Yep.
And so I get there, there was a table, there were scripts, there were seats, and I was like, oh, okay, table reading. Perfect. I nailed it. But yeah, I'd never been there. I'd never auditioned. I'd never had, a couple of commercial classes through the agency, but everything else was self-taught. I wouldn't even say taught. I've just been a fan. I've been acting scenes and reciting monologues since I was a kid, for fun with all my friends, and for the hours that many of them have had to play audience members. Thank y'all, whether they wanted to or not. But that was always a thing for me that came easy was memorization of movies and lines and plays. Like I would watch a film once and be able to recite it like reel to reel, or be able to watch scenes and be able to recite it, start to finish. I couldn't solve for X to save my life in early years math. I was terrible at it, but I loved film and theater. So went to the table reading and, went through the steps, and years later, because it was at the time they did like me, but we didn't get funding for the production. Then years passed, a year and a half passed. Last year, of course, is going on. Then I get a phone call from the writer last year, midway through last year. Hey, what's going on? I'm like, hey, what's up, man? Haven't heard from you in a while. Like, how's it going? Glad to hear you're alive. And we had a nice catch up. And then it was, hey, so we're looking to put back on our production. Would you still be interested in reading for the part? I was like, sure. At the time thinking like New York's closed, everything else is closed. Yeah, why not? Like, of course I'm gonna agree to it, not thinking anything's gonna come of it. And then the world began to reopen, and we had a 5-week run that finished in mid-October this year, which was freaking awesome.
So this was Case Closed, the Dorian Corey story. Okay, yeah,
exactly.
We had Jeffrey, the playwright, on our podcast.
Oh God,
yeah,
he's the best. He's the best.
Amazing, yeah, really, really, really interesting story too. And it was great to hear. I mean, it was great to hear coming out of this pandemic and seeing this production be staged. It was just a really, really heartwarming thing to say. So hope it was very, very successful. I hope he has more future runs and you have more work in acting, hopefully, if you so desire. I don't know, could you do both, like, balance real estate and acting if you want to do that?
I would certainly be keen for it. And yeah, he and I are in the process, he more than I, but in the process of putting us onto a larger forum and picking the run back up. So hopefully that
Okay.
happens for sure, because we had a great cast. The play was cast so well. I don't have anything to compare it to because it's my first one, but from what I understand and know, it was cast so well. It was written so well. Jeffrey Scott is an amazing playwright. He really, really is. And his attention for detail and little bits of nuance in the writing, the identity of of characters, and the way we all came out as our characters were written, is all to his creative genius. We just had to kind of, he kind of would say a lot, just read it as it's written, read it as it's written, because it was really that good. And when we didn't get that an original production, when we were first planning to do it in 2019, yeah, there was a little setback or like disappointment maybe, but then it was so much better now, right? Because we were part of that first wave of return to theater for New York City, which for sure had to have meant so much more to many people that were yearning for something, right? And we got to be part of that, and I think that's so very cool. I would definitely be keen to try to do that congruently with working in real estate, right? I was working full time while we were rehearsing here full time, and then while we were doing 5 shows a week full time. So I did it. I'd
Good.
be open to doing it otherwise. And I have some other actors here at the firm that some have to take time away for season shootings, even for various shows either on Netflix or film. So it's doable. It's definitely doable, and I'd be open for it.
I've seen a lot of people, especially here in Atlanta. There's a great handful of people who came from radio, TV, and went into real estate. And it seems like a real natural fit because there is a performance to that. I would think there is, as you're trying to present things and sell things. It all can be part of performance and part of the selling of something. So I'm sure that helps quite a bit as well.
Yeah, if you're not too, you know, if you don't like public speaking, it might be tough, but maybe that's good, because if you don't like public speaking, the more you do something you don't like, that you're not great at, the better it's going to maybe mold and help your mind a little bit. But for sure, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of performance. There's a lot of spotlight. There's a lot of stage time, because yeah, you're an attraction, or you're trying to draw attraction.
Right.
And so yeah, you need to have that on point and be able to wield it at a moment's notice, and then turn it off, just the same, and be consistent, right? I try to be as consistent with everyone client wise as possible, and having that continuity, I think is very important, right? Not just for my sake, my own, being able to go home and lay my head high and rest well knowing I did a good thing, but for clients to be able to know and say, he was that way with me, he was the same way with me, he was responsive, he was polite, he was professional, he was courteous, he was kind, all of them should have the same Rolodex of words to describe me. Not one should be, any different than the other. And I think that's really important.
Absolutely.
Much like a character, but a genuine character.
Wow. So what was life like growing up in New Orleans? How was that like, and the type of household that you were raised in?
All boys Catholic school, was a trip, was cool, but that was normal for us. But yeah, growing up in New Orleans is great. It's a beautiful city, beautiful culture. Saints are everything to us.
Yeah.
Still are to this day. So who dat? I grew up with a very close group of friends. I say close group, it's a big group, but we're all very close. Like up until into our 20s, our mid 20s, we would still meet up for reunions and whatnot, and we'd be 50 deep, anywhere we went. And I'm going to be there next week for another one of these kind of reunion lunches, and there'll be probably 50 plus of the same guys that I've known for some almost 30 years, now. And
Yeah.
to be able to still be that thick as Thieves is so cool. And I hope that other people get a similar joy and have that from where they came from. But New Orleans is a small place. Even pre-Katrina, we were barely eclipsing the million, people mark for population, and since has never regained that same size. Still growing, but probably just over around 600,000, if I had to guess, for total metro. And most people think New Orleans is a bigger city just because of the history, the notoriety, the tourism, but
Right.
it's not. And because of that smallness of it, quaintness, we're all pretty familial as far as, and you're gonna know people very close, very, very frequently, right? And I always
Yeah.
laugh with my mother. I'm like, how long is it gonna take to walk around or be somewhere in the city without running into not just a friend, but a dear friend? Oh my God, it's like the biggest reunion. And how's your mom and them? And hey, baby, how's it going? How you doing, darling? And like, dropping
It's
ours and
great.
being right back on the block real fast. And I'm like blushing thinking about it because it's a beautiful thing. I was at a doctor's appointment the other day, and the nurse was actually from New Orleans, and we were talking, and she said something, and I was like, "Where are you from?" And I said it in a sense that I knew by the way I would say it, she would immediately perk up and go, like
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
knew what I meant,
There's a certain
and
strength.
she looked at me, she's like, "Who's asking? Where you from?" Like kind of back at me, and I was like,
Right.
I'm pretty sure I'm from the same place you are. And she was like, "You from New Orleans?" And I was like, "Indeed I am." And she was like, "Oh my God." She started flipping out. She's like, "I've been living here for 8 years, working at this hospital for that long. I've never met anybody else from New Orleans." And she's like, "Give me a hug, baby. How you doing?" Da, da, da. It's a common phrase for us to say, "How's your mom and them? How's your mom and them?" And she said that, and I don't know. It's just something about our
Yeah.
place and our city that really makes it home. And I'm so glad to be from there.
Love the vibe of it and everything. Visiting there, I was there a number of years ago. I did a story down there, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau, we all went to a place called Galatoire's, and it's like you can't go wrong with the food. It's just like, oh my God, I love that Cajun food. It's unique, and there's no other place like that.
Jackets for gentlemen still required at
Oh yeah.
Galatoire's, so don't get caught. Actually, you can go without one, and they'll provide one for you. They keep some usable ones, some
Oh,
rentables
that's
there
nice.
on the coat hanger. Yeah, there's been some credible persons try to go there without jackets and be refused service, and it's a funny thing to look up, like who has been turned down by Galatoire's for not wearing jackets. It's a good list. Yeah.
Love the seersuckers down there too.
Exactly. And in the middle of August, people will rock them. God bless. Yeah, it's a hot place, but yes, food, music, and drink. If you don't like to eat, if you don't like to listen to music, and if you don't like alcohol, New Orleans might not be the city for you. Just saying.
What else is
But
there?
but we have something for everybody, so I wouldn't say no to going, even if you don't like those things. But as a human, you got to eat. So you might
Yeah.
not have to eat all the decadent, uber rich food, but there's the
Oh,
food is worldly there for sure. The music is everywhere. You'll sit down at a cafe, there's brass music outside. You'll sit down at another restaurant, there's jazz music outside. You'll be walking to the French Quarter, and there's just innumerable types of street performers playing on instruments made out of things you didn't know were devices, let alone musical instruments anyway. And before you realize that they're playing on a bucket and a mop, which makes a bass guitar, or with I don't know, spoons and an accordion and a washboard, it sounds like really great music. And then you look over and you're like, that's what's making all these sounds. Wow, it's crazy. And hearing the clanging and banging of porcelain and stainless steel spoons tapping on coffee cups at Cafe Du Monde with brass music outside, and
oh,
Jackson Square, the French Quarter. It's pretty surreal, but it paints a very vivid picture, and super fond memories for me. To this day, whenever I go home, the first morning after arriving, I go to Cafe Du Monde for coffee and beignets, to sit there and have that presence and that music and that ambiance. And people are like, really? That's such a touristy thing to do. That is my number one thing I recommend to people doing when they ask me for the list. That's number one of morning number one. And always gets blowback of like, really? That I'm like, yes, that.
Yeah, it's not really touristy. Cafe du Monde, that coffee with the chicory in it, and the beignets just going all over the place. Nothing beats that. Going down Bourbon Street with the Hurricane. Yeah, it can feel it's not really touristy. It's just really unique. You can't really do that anywhere else.
Yeah, like to go cups, to go
Yeah.
alcohol, drinking outside is now permitted in Manhattan, and it's a thing. And when that was first happening last year and into this year, when the service reopened, this spring and the summer of this year especially were so much fun because everybody was happy and excited, much like anywhere else in the country, right? But there's just a lot more of us in one small little place here. So you really see people's energy of liberation and expression and just, almost uncontrollable sense of we're doing this. Drinks all over the street and to go service everywhere. It was a fun summer. And all the while I'm thinking, this boy, you guys love this, huh? It's cool. Like, you're welcome. Like, I've had this all my life. When I used to come here traveling from New Orleans and being told, no, you cannot take that beer outside. And I was like, why? And they're like, because it's illegal. And I'm like, well, that sucks. And everywhere else I traveled growing up
Yeah.
outside of New Orleans, like, there's no to-go service. And people like, no, stupid, where are you from? And I'm like, the place where that allows that. And now everybody can do it. So
Well, that's
you're welcome
great.
for that one,
So really, you can go around Times Square now and just like, and really, that's nice. Hey,
Yeah,
why not
yeah.
in Manhattan? I mean, you're not driving.
It's about time. So
Good. Excellent. So you also have dual citizenship. Is that still going on?
I do. I do. My mother is from Mexico. Her side of the family's from Mexico, and I obtained my citizenship per her having that too. Yeah. I was actually I'll be down there probably in a few weeks as well, going back, visit home and hang out for a little bit, catch some air. But yeah, big part of my background is my Mexican culture and heritage. Very proud of that and love going down there too. I was actually living there in Mexico City when everything started to close and button up last year, and returned at the beginning of April in 2020.
Wow, you've done it all. You've done it all, and doing so well with the real estate firm. It's a Cooper and Cooper. That's and you have the best sales in 17 years. Is that the stat? You have a stat on your sheet here.
So we posted collectively highest grossing sales margin in 16 years in 2020, because it was our 17th year this year, and surpassed all those numbers this year as we're in December now. And that was month by month. January 2020, February, March, each one of those was a record setting month, and then the whole year itself was record setting. But month by month of 2021, it was January 21, we beat January 20. February 21, we beat February 20, and it just went March, April, and we've kept that steam all the way through. So again, to show the health of the market then, and then the return, and it being, people should go long on New York now. But yeah, I apply that athlete kind of mindset and military mindset of accuracy and competitiveness to tracking deals and clients and profiling people, and the time between deals and whatnot. Yeah, because it keeps that competitiveness about you. Like the same way Tom Brady would be prescribed, or LeBron James would be prescribed about game management, load management, about, okay, a little less effort here is going to promote higher efficiency and longevity throughout the season. If we try to go 40 minutes a game instead of 45 minutes a game, we're going to get a higher ROI on the whole season, because the likelihood of postseason games for LeBron is very, very high. And we're going to want to have him for those games. Like, he's in his 19th NBA season right now, I believe.
Yeah.
But he has actually played in closer to 22 or 23 NBA seasons because of all the post season play he's had, playoffs, right? So when you think about that, that has to be something considered of, like, okay, it's not always going to be max effort, redlining this machine every chance we get, but we need to know how to manipulate that output to where we're going to maximize its productivity. And I try to do something similar with that.
Very neat. What type of sports were you into?
I played soccer all my life. Still play a little bit here and there, not nearly as much. I ran track in college. I've been swimming a good bit, and I still run and work out as best I can now.
Do the New York Marathon. Have you done that?
I actually just ran the Philly Marathon. It was my first one this November. I had never run a marathon, actually. I was running half marathons pretty weekly last year during the pandemic just for fun. And I raced in one on Halloween this year, actually in New Orleans, which was so much fun. Any excuse for us to get dressed up and put on costumes in that city, forget about it. Because we do that anyway, on just regular Tuesday. It's like, why not? It's New Orleans. But went down there to visit family, spend time, see my mother. And also the Saints were playing against the Bucks. So it's Saints versus Tom Brady.
Yeah.
The Saints play a lot on Halloween, and it's always a good time, again, for the atmosphere, the costumes and whatnot. So I wanted to take my mother to the Saints game. And ran the half marathon in costume. And as soon as I finished, I was like, man, I should finally try to do this marathon thing. It's been a pretty good banner year of accomplishments. Like, why not add another thing to the list? And so we finished that race on Halloween, and a buddy of mine, like 2 days later, was like, hey, there's the Philadelphia marathons on November 21st. I was like, okay, cool, let's do it. And he's like, you sure? It's like 3 weeks away, less. And I was like, yeah, why not? Never been to Philadelphia. Let's do it. And so, prepped for, 17 days and ran the marathon. It was awesome. Yeah.
I've done a lot of half marathons. I did one full one about 5 years ago. I'm thinking about doing like one full one every 5 years. But that's
so cool though. Congratulations, Rob. Congratulations. It's an achievement for sure.
It's a great feeling doing a full, even to do any of these races. I mean, I just did my last half on Thanksgiving. Was the first time, because of the pandemic, I didn't do a lot of races through 2020. I did virtuals. But what a great feeling.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah. So it's been great speaking with you. Thank you for your time.
Likewise. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Have a good one, and best of luck in your acting
You too.
and real estate. Take care.
You. Take care of Atlanta.
Bye-bye.
The holidays start here at Baker's with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. Whether you're making a traditional roasted turkey or spicy turkey tacos, your go-to shrimp cocktail, or your first Cajun risotto, Baker's has all the freshest ingredients to embrace your traditions. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
Choose from a great selection of digital coupons and use them up to 5 times in one transaction. Check our app for details. Baker's, fresh for everyone.